Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different, taking a hard but I think necessary look at the human cost of, well, industrial disasters.
Yeah, and specifically, we're focusing on the Fratterville mine disaster.
Exactly. And for our sources, we've got a mix, some personal reflections that connect to similar events, which is powerful, plus historical marker info and these incredibly moving last letters from the miners themselves.
Those letters are, yeah,
Yeah.
really something.
So the goal here is really to get past just the facts, to try and understand the personal impact, the devastation, and maybe the wider picture of workplace safety back
It was
then.
a very different world.
It really was. And just a heads up, this is it's a deeply emotional topic we're diving into.
Absolutely. And, to start getting a sense of the scale,
Mm.
that historical marker, it mentions only 3 adult men were left alive in the whole town.
Scream it.
Just 3. Think about that.
Yeah.
The community essentially wiped out. And coal mining then, late 19th, early 20th century, was incredibly dangerous.
Right.
You had methane gas, coal dust explosions, cave-ins, and safety precautions were often, well, minimal, sometimes non-existent. That's the backdrop here.
It's almost impossible to really wrap your head around that kind of loss. The families, the community, just gone.
Devastating. And it really sets the scene for these individual stories we see in their last words.
Yeah, those final messages, they get us such a raw, unfiltered look into their last moments.
Exactly. Like Jacob Vowell's letter to his wife, Ellen. He even notes the time, 2:25 p.m.
And that line, one more breath, just heartbreaking.
It really is. Followed by, goodbye, darling, Ellen. Simple, but so powerful. What really hits you when you hear things like that is it their faith, their focus on family.
For me, it's that mix, like you said, noting the time, almost mundane, and then this profound plea for air and the love for his wife. And knowing his
It's
son.
a 14-year-old son, Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey was right there with him, and they asked to be buried together. And Harvey asking for his brother Horace to get his clothes and shoes.
Such a small human detail.
In the middle of all that horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's Frank Sharp. His message was written on slate.
On slate. Wow.
Yeah. Dear Mabel, I am dying for air. I will soon be gone. Meet me in heaven. You can almost feel the desperation, the struggle for breath.
And even then, his thought is, take care of the children and do the best you can. Thinking of them right to the end.
Power Harmon's note was a bit longer, but that same core message comes through. Love, concern.
And that specific plea. My boys never work in the coal mines.
Speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the life they lived, the dangers they knew. He wanted something different, something safer for his kids.
Absolutely. George Hudson's message, though shorter, hits just as hard.
Yeah, simple things. Asking his wife about his burial clothes, hoping to see her in heaven. Goodbye, do as you wish. That finality.
And James Brooks, his note to his wife and baby, oh man.
Just asking them to go home, saying he believes he's going to heaven, wanting them to meet him there. That sort of desperate hope.
Against impossible odds, yeah.
And finally, John Hendren's letter. It's incredibly detailed. They actually put it on his headstone.
Really? The whole thing?
Well, a significant part. He writes to everyone, mother, father, siblings, friends. Says he's going to heaven, tells them to live right so they can meet him there.
It's amazing the detail he includes, even then.
Right. Instructions about Sarah, about his debts, even how he wants to be buried. Pleasant Hill, black clothing. And he notes the time, around 1:30 p.m.
And that chilling detail. He says he hadn't suffered much yet.
Yeah. It gives you this awful sense of the timeline, the waiting, the conditions worsening.
And he mentions a deceased son, and he had another son trapped there with him, right?
That seems to be the case. It just underscores how these disasters rip through families.
Yeah.
Whole branches just gone.
These stories from Fratterville, they paint such a vivid, terrible picture. And sadly, as you know from your own family history, this wasn't a one-off kind of event.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
You shared that connection to the Union Pacific mine explosion in Hanna, Wyoming, your great-great-grandfather.
Yeah, him, his brother, and his 13-year-old son all died.
And that detail about him trying to carry his son out, it just echoes the families trapped together in Fratterville. It was so common then, multiple family members lost in one go.
Which connects to that Gilded Age immigrant experience, right?
Yeah.
Limited options.
Exactly. Dangerous jobs in mines, factories, often was the only work available.
Right.
And that often meant, sadly, child labor too.
And your assumption that child labor was common in the late 1800s, early 1900s in these jobs, it's spot on, unfortunately.
A harsh reality. Kids treated as just more labor. It's hard to reconcile with how we view childhood now.
A completely different world. And it wasn't just mining, was it? You shared another story about your great-grandfather in logging.
Yeah, his first day, a tree fell, killed another worker right next to him.
And the foreman's reaction?
Load him up on the flatbed and get back to work. Plenty more where he came from.
Unbelievable. Just callous doesn't even begin to cover it. What allowed for that kind of thinking?
Well, it points to a time where, profit often seemed more important than a person's life. Lack of accountability, lack of regulation. The structures just weren't there to protect workers.
Your reaction to hearing that story, evil shit?
Mm.
I mean, yeah, it's completely understandable. It's appalling.
It really is.
And it just hammers home that point you made. The safety rules we have now, the stuff people sometimes complain about as red tape.
They were bought with blood. That's the reality.
Every single regulation, likely tied to tragedies like these. People fought and died for these protections.
It's a sobering thought. And the tragedy didn't even end there for your family, did it? His son.
Yeah, his oldest survived son, later died in another mine accident nearby. It just shows how persistent the danger was.
The risks were just constant, and the safety measures clearly weren't enough for a long, long time.
Circling back to Fratterville for a moment, we have to remember how young some of them were. Jacob Bell's son, Elbert, trapped with him, 14.
And the youngest victim overall was only 12.
12 years old, working in a coal mine. It's staggering. You mentioned wanting to understand the difference between then and now. These stories, they make it starkly clear.
They really do. These aren't just names on a list or historical footnotes. They were people, families, lives cut short because the conditions were so dangerous, the protections so absent.
And the impact just rippled out for generations, like in your family stories.
Those scars last. Communities were devastated.
So as we wrap this up, something maybe for everyone listening to think about. We still have debates today, right? About worker safety, about deregulation.
You certainly do.
How do these stories from Fratterville, from Hannah, from logging camps, how do they maybe change how we look at those debates?
Yeah, what's the real cost when protections are weakened or removed? Have we actually learned the lessons from the sacrifices these people make?
It's a heavy question, definitely, but maybe a vital one to keep asking ourselves.